In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks live stream, we've got seriously elite Snapdragon PCs coming. We'll be ripping threads en masse as well with a 96-core beast of Zen 4 next. Oh my goodness, Mark.
I can't even click the right video. What an idiot.
You're on the wrong mic too, I think. You got a little echo going on, but we'll fix that.
I will fix that. That's easy. I hope that's easy. Let's see.
Let's put you in the 2 box so everybody can see you struggle.
Yeah, it's one of those days. So that should be the right mic now. Does that sound
perfecto? Oh, it's baby, you're like butter smooth now.
All right, good. Sorry, everybody. This is what happens when you leave me in charge of clicking buttons.
I'm getting punchy from punching all these buttons. Who said that? George Jetson?
I don't know.
He did. I'm getting punchy from punching all these buttons. Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Friday. Welcome back to another 2.5 Geeks live stream for hothardware.com. That's where we're from, across the internets. With me, as always, is my compatriot, partner in crime, and otherwise delightfully entertaining guy, except for when he's screwing up the buttons. It's Marco Chiappetta. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. I've been better, but we're live.
You're great. You're fine. It's Friday, and it's been a long week. We've been busy as heck, and all kinds of enjoyable busy because this time of year, as folks probably can surmise, the tech industry heats up quite a bit in the run up to CES. Which is coming in January, the Consumer Electronics Show, and just Q4 launch time for the holiday shopping season for good girls and good boys, good geek girls and boys. So, we're short on sleep and high on energy and caffeine, hopefully.
1 cup of coffee a day for me now. I'm trying to cut back on the caffeine.
Yeah. 1 cup of coffee for me too. It tends to rip up my gut if I have more than one, but that's a story for another day. So anyways, we've got a lot on tap today. Little bit of catch up. We've been away for a little while, traveling and working too much, frankly, but that's okay. And you might notice it's just me and Marco is pushing knobs and dials. So you might notice that we are sans Chris today. And unfortunately, we're going to be sans Chris moving forward because Chris has moved on. He is taking on a new adventure with his wife, who is a smarty pants professor at a university in Kentucky, and he's joining her there in the IT department there. And what a great family affair. So we wish Chris well, Chris and Brittany Getting, the fabulous Gettings that had been with us for years, are taking on new adventures. So we wish them well and hope for the best. And I'm sure they'll kick some butt, right, in the collegiate space.
Exactly. And that we typically call the show 2.5 Geeks. So to make up for the loss, I'm going to eat an extra pizza a week, and in a few months I'll put on another 100 pounds and we'll be good to go. We got another half geek.
Dude, you can't do that. It's not good for you to do that. But
it'd be so fun. It'd be so fun doing it though.
Oh, all right. As long as we can get some of that.
Hey, Chris is here. Chris is on. Chris is watching live. Very cool.
Oh, excellent. Hey, Chris, how you doing, brother?
There he is.
Good to see you, at least in an unembodied head. So can we like get some of that? What is it? Sally's a pizza from is it? What is it? New Haven?
It's right? New Haven. They're opening one about 300 feet from my house.
Oh yeah.
Well, at least while I'm in this house. Like when we move, it'll be further. But they're opening another Sally's. So one opened in Stamford, which is like 20 minutes away. But they're literally opening one at the mall that's right off the exit near my house. So I'm looking forward to that.
When does that open up?
I don't know. Probably, I think by the summer. It's going to be a little while. They just announced it recently.
Bummer. I was going to suggest another power lunch was in order.
There's so much good stuff if you want to make the trek all the way down here.
Yeah. Well, we'll go to New Haven too. We can meet in the middle.
There you go. I'm totally down for a day in New Haven.
So anyways, Chris is configuring Macs and on a domain. Spooky season for sure, he says. Yeah, I would imagine
He's
that
gonna have to
is.
go home and shower twice. All the Mac.
You know, we're PC agnostic here. We're tech enthusiasts and evangelists and and analysts. So we don't pick our fruits necessarily.
It's leftover animosity from my Commodore and Amiga days when you had to hate Apple. That's all it is.
Oh,
They make good stuff.
I see. I get you. But anyway, speaking of picking fruit, Marco's been busy lately. I don't know how that segue worked, but anyways, what's going on in the lab for you? And then we'll dive into the quick hits and the meat, which we got some really good
So
stuff
the
today.
stuff in the lab that I can talk about, I have an Acer Swift notebook powered by a 7040 series Ryzen. This is a mainstream 15.6-inch notebook with a nice OLED display, and it's using the integrated Radeon graphics. So basically, like the fullest implementation of a Ryzen 7040U in a thin and light, not too tiny form factor.
Mhm.
Really nice machine, really affordable machine, done with like 90% of testing and all the pics are done. And then finally, if you have been watching the channel, I got the build video for the Xeon W up before I left for the Snapdragon Summit. That
Mhm.
machine, I just have to benchmark it, and we'll have that full review up. And then obviously that data is relevant because coming later, as if you've been looking at the site, there's new Threadrippers coming. So hopefully, I'm assuming we'll get to test that and have some sort of Threadripper related information later in the month. So that's what's going on right now.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you got enough going on. I've been playing around with phones lately. Got something in from Huawei that was interesting to say the least. And laptops. I've been doing some testing for you to compare with the folks at Qualcomm, who are now really injecting themselves into the conversation of the PC. We will talk more about that later. But let's kick into the headlines, and then I hope I can do this. I'm going to try and share, or do you want to try and do this? Share the screen.
I have the browser windows open, but I've never done it. I could take a shot and we'll see if I break it.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start at the top, baby. Let's start with Alan Wake 2 performance and visuals. Bring your biggest, baddest GPU. Now I know we have to go to this guy right here, right? And then you got this.
Well, we're supposed to add something to. Oh, I screwed up, or no? Did I just mess that up? Hold on.
No.
I can share my browser window, but
yeah,
is that going to screw up the layout?
I think the layout's going to go right to what I put it right now when you do that. So go ahead.
All right. So share screen.
Chris, we're hurting over here, kid. Thank you.
So I'm doing the Alan Wake. Bring your biggest GPU.
Yeah. This you are.
Okay.
Oh, look.
And we will add it to the stage.
Oh, hey. Now zoom in a little bit.
So let's zoom in a bit.
Okay. It's like almost like we know what we're doing. So yeah,
hey, I'm not completely useless. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're good. Look at that. It's like we know what we're doing almost. So yeah, Zach Killian from our team covered this, and let's just say it is a GPU cruncher and a PC muncher. It really is a demanding title, but has some seriously cutting edge graphics. And Zach did a little testing with a 4080 and I think he's got a 3080 in there, and I think he's got, our GeForce RTX 4080 and GeForce RTX 3080, just to be sure. And Radeon RX 7700 XT. So basically, oh wow, did you?
Yeah. So we get a rogue ad while we're live on. That's perfect.
That's just beautiful. That's just beautiful. Anyways, gotta love it. So yeah, he
go back.
Yeah. There you go. It's all right. So yeah, he did a bunch of testing across multiple types of GPUs and found that I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit more. Interesting performance spread, and to say the least, when you have this thing maxed out, your 4090 or your 4080 at least will be crying for uncle, and I think maybe even a 4090 might cry for uncle. What are your thoughts there, Marco? And then we'll keep moving right along.
So first off, the game looks absolutely amazing, right? So if you want to see what cutting edge graphics on the best gaming platform in the world, the PC, looks like, Alan Wake 2 is probably the best example. So you have to expect it to sort of crush today's GPUs. Yeah, but I think what's most interesting about this game is it probably makes the biggest case for scalers like DLSS and FSR and XeSS. You really, just about everybody playing this game, you should probably be running at least in quality mode, just to get the frame rate boost without sacrificing any image quality. Because yeah, it's a GPU crusher. 4060. Let me scroll down. I think he has additional tests down here. So
Yeah,
this is a 7700 XT, 6800 XT. This is older stuff. Hold on. Let's go. First of all, look at that. Looks like a movie, right? The visuals are amazing.
yeah, that's in game, by the way. Yeah,
Right. So that looking at the data though, yeah, let me go back to one of the charts just to show it. Like a 7700 XT at only 1080p, right? We're talking 1080p, not like 4K. 54 frames per second average on a 7700 XT, like murderous, right?
Yeah,
Murderous visuals. So I think I haven't spent any real time with the game. I definitely want to play it because I was a huge fan of Max Payne and Max Payne 2. And I think Remedy is on the right track here, but definitely a GPU killer.
Yeah, well, it has a path trace mode, right? So full path tracing as well. Yeah,
I believe so.
I believe so. And yeah, so when you set to it's got RT low preset here in this graph. So that's ray tracing at the low preset for the game, and it's still, only catching 54 frames per second on a 7700 XT. But if you go up a little bit more, Marco, you'll see the 4060, I think, in there.
Yeah,
and the 30.
This one here.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I mean, now you're talking let's see, yeah, 4060 Ti and 4080 Ti. Interestingly enough, with frame gen on, no, that's 4082 as well.
No, there's no 4080 here. The fastest cards here are 4060 Ti with frame generation.
Okay, I'm having trouble seeing the text. Yeah, we should blow that up a little bit more. But anyways, yeah, you can see with for frame gen on, you get some pretty good frame rates. You get some with ultra textures, you get some lower mins, but not too bad. But yeah, you need this next generation upscaling technology and frame generation to make this thing at its highest settings, its quality settings, make this thing run at an acceptable performance. So I like that Remedy is pushing the envelope on graphics demands. Why not?
Yeah, me too. It might be painful in the short term, but you want to push the platform forward, right? You look at something like Spider-Man 2 on the PS5, looks absolutely incredible, and it's running on an APU. So yeah.
So interesting stuff for sure. I'll drop this link in the chat as well. We also did a run Alan Wake 2 at max settings with this under 2500 gaming PC build guide. And there you go. So we took, I would say not a over the top, but here's with a modest investment, under $2,500, what you can do. So there's a couple of, I think we get a couple of different CPU choices from AMD and Intel. Is that about right? Yeah.
So yeah, the best overall, I think. Well, for this though, that was the power efficient build. Best overall game, best overall gaming CPU, 7800 X3D. It's kind of universally known that it's the best value for a PC gamer right now. 3D V cache, 8 cores, great processor for $369. And you kind of work your way down the stack with a good CPU cooler that won't break the bank, a high-end, relatively high-end X670E motherboard that again won't break the bank. It's a $300 motherboard, but you can spend $1,000 on an X670E if you want to go nuts.
Yeah.
And 32 gigs of memory, which should be plenty for most gamers. And what the GPU, obviously, bang. So you saw what the numbers looked like in Alan Wake with 4060 Ti. If you want to get that much smoother experience where the mins are a lot higher than what you saw in the previous charts, we're recommending a 4080 for the game at minimum. If you really want to enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hardly Worgen says this game is waiting until I can afford my upgrade in 2070.
There
You
you go.
gotta jump in there, brother. You gotta jump in there sooner than later. There'll never be a time when it's, perfect to buy that next gen upgrade, right? You're always going to be trying to catch a moving target or something. I don't know.
There's always something coming, but yeah, I mean, I get it too. Like most of us have Steam libraries that we have 20 games we haven't played yet. So if you can wait till the game gets discounted, and then you can afford a better GPU, why not?
Amen.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's move right along from Alan Wake 2. That was an interesting study in both performance across a number of mainstream graphics cards, but also how you might configure a PC. So yeah, and then Zach also put this little gem up. I will load it now. Acer Predator
I
Bifrost.
can switch over to it. I got it right here.
Yeah, Bifrost. Bifrost Arc A770. Easy for me to say. And it's a 16 gig card. I would like to see how this. Do we have this A770 in the benchmarks? We might. For Alan Wake.
It's in the Alan Wake article.
Yeah. So you can see how this thing performs. But this is a $289. That's kind of like as low as yeah.
This. I have to qualify it.
Go ahead.
I was talking with Zach yesterday because it was, the price was $289 before I went to publish. I went to check and grab the Amazon link, and it was at $379. So I went to find prices everywhere, and it's all over the map. And if you track the price of this card, it's the chart looks like this because it's constantly getting discounted, constantly going for MSRP and up and down. So MSRP is $399. You can find it every day between $320 and $379, but it has been as low as $289. So definitely check prices if you're interested in what is technically the fastest ARC you can get.
Yeah, I'm going to drop this link in the chat and you can check it out. It is listing for $379 right now, but I think if we looked at, Camel or whatever it is, you'll see that funky graph of pricing. So keep your eye on it. Looks like they've got a A750 for $239, but I don't know how that's going to run this beast of a game. So anyways, any thoughts on the card? Looks like, a well-designed card. It's got that fat 16 gig frame buffer. I like the combo, I think, of radial fan and blower style fan. That's kind of cool. Maybe a little push-pull action there. I like that. So anyways,
Cool design. So you have the radial fan in the middle that's exhausting air out the back and pushing some towards this rear fan, and the rear fan is a blow through, right? So if you're talking a standard tower, this fan's blowing air up in the case where it's going to get exhausted kind of towards CPU. This is blowing air out. And if I jump, I'm sure we'll get to the benchmarks, but let me jump to the acoustics. It's a mix, right? The radio, so minimum 40 dB kind of expected, like you got to have a noise floor in the room. Average is 58, so it's not super quiet when it's under load. And if you crank it to 100%, it's 61 dB. So it can get pretty loud if you crank it up. Not brutal, but not quiet either.
Quiet office, moderate rainfall was the environment in which that test was run.
Right.
Which explains the 40 dB min floor.
Yeah.
But anyways, because usually a quiet room is like 32, 34 dB, right? So there's a couple of decibels.
I think my office, with my desktop running, like if it's nothing's moving, dead silent, it's like a 36-ish. Floor.
So check that out at Hot Hardware. We dropped the link in the chat, and the Acer Predator Bifrost Arc A770. That's how it performs. It's a mid-ranger.
I'll burn through some charts. It really depends on Intel's drivers. So you look at Baldur's Gate, it's a mid-range card for sure. Counter-Strike 2, it can do just under 100 frames per second at 4K. But again, towards the bottom of the chart. But if you go to something like Starfield, right, where the drivers have issues, it tanks. And it's really a software issue because the architecture is good, should have more performance than this. But, this is Intel's first discrete GPU in many years. They got to do a little bit of driver work, and they'll get there. because it's for it to perform as well as it does in the broad range of games Zach tested is actually, it's a testament to how much work Intel has done.
Yeah, here you go. There's Resident Evil 4 on
Yep.
DirectX 12 Ultimate settings. And yeah, it's, I mean, we've got at the top of this chart a 4060 Ti, right? Is that the top?
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, you can see where it lands. It's in pretty good shape there in that game setting. Yeah.
Yep.
Anywho, moving right along, that's the Acer Predator Bifrost Arc A770. Let's talk about one more, and then we'll move on. Well, we might want to talk about Apple too, but let's drop this baby in. Check this guide out if you are looking to build a PC for under $1,500, and that is by Matt Canatzer, excuse me. Yeah, Matt's new in the team, and he put together this build guide, Intel and AMD options. And yeah, for under $1,500, this is what I would call an efficient, balanced build. It's easy on the power budget. It's easy on the budget. And yeah, lots of cool options there. Core i5 13500, the recommended CPU. $247.98. That's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And Thermalright Assassin, you can see it's all standard cooling kind of stuff, nothing liquid there. Any thoughts on this, Marco?
Yeah, so it was actually interesting. I'm going to jump right to the end, right? Because we can go through the components all we want. Essentially, what Matthew did was recommend some of the most power efficient parts. That was the goal of the build, not the cheapest, not the highest performance. It was in this segment trying to keep it under $1,500, how to keep it as power efficient as possible. And ultimately what you find is, let me get to the table at the end, is the Intel build, the AMD build works out to about $1,427. And the Intel build's a little cheaper at just over $1,400, $1,410. Lots of similarities, obviously, because same GPU, same storage, same power supply, same case, but with different motherboard, processor, memory, because the Intel rig is DDR4, AMD rig's DDR5. You can see how close the two platforms are in terms of cost. We're well under the $1,500 limit. And, this would be a really good performing rig with an RTX 4070 and either of these processors. So, not terribly nuts to get into the realm of PC gaming and quiet, efficient PC gaming. Like one of the benefits of a power efficient rig is, lower temps, lower noise. So yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, there you go. So that's how we would recommend at this current moment, if you're looking to put together a power efficient, cost efficient gaming PC. There you go. From Matt Canatzer. So
cool.
What are you saying? What are you swearing at?
Oh, I'm not swearing. I said cool.
Oh, cool. I thought you said, oh, never mind.
No.
Well, let's keep moving on and finish up on the quick hits with Apple's event, the Scary Fast event. I'm dropping that link in the chat. M3 architecture revealed, 3 different chips, the standard, the Pro, the Max, M3 and M3 Pro and M3 Max. And it's built on a 3 nanometer process. It is, we assume that to be TSMC. And, as usual, vague, big power claims from Apple. Marco, what are your thoughts there? What are your thoughts?
My initial gut reaction
claims,
is this is a 70% miss, right, from Apple. First, it was like a really turbo presentation. Second, the timing was, if you ask me, it was in response to Qualcomm's news from the week before, right? They wanted to say, hey, we're building the most efficient ARM-based cores, but we really won't know until we test stuff. And ultimately, what you see, like if you break down the specs for the M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max, the M3 and M3 Pro, in some regards, are a downgrade over the M2 and M2 Pros because they have narrower memory bus,
right,
and things like that. But because it's built on a more advanced process, we're assuming they clock higher, right? They clock higher and you get some more performance. There's probably some other tweaks to the architecture as you move to a more advanced process. You're gonna fix bugs. You're gonna enhance things here and there. The M3 Max looks like a beast, right? That's the monster across the board.
Yep.
But like the configurations are weird. Like the base model MacBook Pros like coming with 8 gigs in 2023 really doesn't make sense. So you got to spend a decent chunk and change if you want one of the higher performing models with enough memory to carry you for a few years. So yeah, I think we got to see how things shake out once they're available and people have tested them. I'm sure some of the guys on the team are going to grab them and we'll have reviews. But yeah, I'm sort of indifferent, and I'm most interested to see how Qualcomm shakes things up in the next year.
Yeah, we'll talk about that shortly, but I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Surprised at the timing of it, and it did seem like a last minute deflector move. And also I was watching some analysis as well that I think Apple may have missed a TSMC, a more optimal TSMC 3 nanometer node. And so the rumor is that there's more powerful, more capable chips coming from Apple, and that these are kind of a stopgap, if you will. Interesting to see, them reacting. I mean, we're just connecting dots, so it's pure speculation. But interesting to see them reacting to Qualcomm's entrance, and I shouldn't say entrance, but their new silicon that is going to be impressive. We'll talk about that, but yeah, I guess value wise, kind of a head scratcher in spots, depending on which configuration you go for, except for that Max chip, which is kind of the full bore. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're going to be nice, right? The M2 Pro, and they're really nice. They're really nice machines, really efficient, great battery life, performance is great. The experience, from everything, how quickly they wake up, it's good stuff, right? I'm not doing it, but I think you're 100% right. These are, if you look at the cadence of releases, these have come really fast relative to the M2 Max and M2 Pro. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of midlife kicker when TSMC is cranking on the more advanced process. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me as well. And I guess it's coincident with the holiday shopping season as well. So it may just be coincident with that. It may not be a stopgap measure on the folks at Apple. They're just trying to get the new baubles out the door for the holidays. But we'll see. And as you noted, Mark, I mean, a good point. Let's face it, Apple has the kind of market share as a sole brand that they do. It's not the same as PC market share. They're a much smaller percentage with Macs, but they build quality product and very efficient silicon. And so it will be interesting to see how Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite, which we'll talk about next, and I'll drop that link in the chat in a second here. It'll be interesting to see how that chip competes, how Intel's forthcoming Meteor Lake competes. Man, I mean, there's a lot of stuff converging here for what could make for an interesting sort of flashy finish to the end of 2023, right?
Yeah, that for sure. We had a couple of questions already pop in. We had
go ahead.
Nice Irish name. Mike Bruzzone.
Hey,
Orion
Mike, how you doing?
ARM or RISC-V based. It's custom ARM cores. The Orion CPU cores sort of were born from the Nuvia acquisition. And the guys that founded Nuvia, a number of them were the architects that made Apple's M3 silicon. So they saw opportunity to build something bigger. Say that again.
I think the Nuvia team worked on M1.
Right, the Apple silicon, the first gen.
Yeah, the first gen. Yeah. So I just dropped that link in the chat. We might as well cut over to it. Any other questions on that? So yeah, it is ARM based, but it's custom ARM cores.
Yeah, actually, just one quick thing that Tim had mentioned about the Apple event was that it was shot on an iPhone, and that got more coverage than the laptops and the iMacs. It was shot on an iPhone, but using the Blackmagic app, right? So the Blackmagic app is part of the reason that it looked the way it did. Yeah.
Although I will say iPhones do, where I think it's not even arguable that Pixel has, Google Pixel phones for Android have some of the best camera capabilities for still images, and they trump Apple, they trump iPhones. But when it comes to video, iPhones got it, and so they do have some pretty good video chops. Anyways, let's move along to Snapdragon X Elite, because that's one of our main events today, and it is a very interesting new custom ARM core build from the folks at Qualcomm. They are reinvigorating the Snapdragon PC lineup that they've had for a while. They had Snapdragon 8 CX, 8. What am I saying? 8 CX Gen 3 was the last one. Yeah. Gen 3, Gen 2, Gen 1. And now we're going to the Orion core, which is, as you can see right there, a cluster, a 4 cluster times 3, so 12 core total topology, with gobs of memory bandwidth, 136 gigabytes per second of total memory bandwidth, and 42 megabytes of cache. Those cores are single threaded, all big cores. They, I think, turbo boost to high 3s across all cores, and can get a pair of them boosting at over 4 gigahertz for multi-threaded workloads that need a little bit more oomph, dual-threaded workloads. And so, very interesting. We didn't get a ton of information on the micro arc, but some very high-level specs and some power numbers, which, as you can see, these are reference designs. They're talking about an 80 watt max device TDP. That's important to point out. And a 23 watt max device TDP. Here you're talking about the entire system. So display, whatever that is being powered in addition to the processor platform. So an 80 watt and a 23 watt platform. And yeah, just wild. Boy, that's interesting. Gotta love that ad. And so let's talk about what I think is the most interesting part of this, which is obviously the performance claims, Marco. Just really, they gave us some numbers. You ran some numbers as well. You got hands-on, sort of. It was tested in front of you, running the apps.
I got to witness numbers running. I didn't actually get to run them, but yeah.
Yeah, you were watching them running live. And well, look at this. I'm gonna let you dive in from here. But man, impressive.
Yeah, so there's a couple other tidbits to understand too when you look at the numbers. When you consider those device TDPs and you see a laptop at 80 watts, you might go, wow, that seems like a lot. An HX series CPU is only 55 watts. Well, no, right? It's a 55 watt base TDP, but they boost and turbo to like 115 plus.
Right.
So 80 watts total TDP, or a 80 watt total thermal envelope, there's been some confusion onto exactly what those numbers mean, is still really good, right, for a laptop. And you're right, it's the 80 watt config can boost to 4.3 on 2 cores, and the 23 watt config will boost to 3.8. Yeah. So what you see, though, is, yes, the 80 watts obviously faster. You have more thermal headroom and higher clocks. But even the 23 watt config is outpacing a Core i7-13700H in terms of single and multi-thread. So right. the lower end config is faster than an H series Intel processor, and in Geekbench,
yeah,
and faster than the Ryzen 7840U, right? So not the absolute top of the line 7040 series, but the main, and that's with the top end 780M graphics, right? So this looks really good in Geekbench. So let's go down the list a little bit. We won't spend too much time. So one of the other things that Qualcomm talked about was they showed a Geekbench score under Linux. And now that's not like that's not to say Qualcomm is fully embracing Linux yet. We don't know exactly what Linux will do on the platform or how it's going to be supported. But what we do know is, if you look at this individual result, this is a picture I took, was not provided by Qualcomm. You could see the individual Geekbench scores. The single core and multi-score scores are actually higher than on Windows, right? It did 3222 single thread and 17215.
A lot higher in single. Wow.
Right. So like, if you eliminate the Windows overhead and get closer to the metal with Linux, like, the performance could be even better. So that's just an aside, but let's move on to some other stuff. So this is the PC Mark 10 applications test. This is the one that actually uses the real Microsoft Office apps. And this class of notebooks, this class of notebooks, that's really what you're probably going to do the most on it, right? a 23-watt notebook up to an 80-watt. These are like road warriors. You know, you're working out of the office. You're not doing crazy rendering or gaming on these machines. And if you see, it's just behind the top end monster gaming notebooks from Intel, right? That's a 13950HX with a 4090, and this thing's right there. But versus the mainstream, you know, Ryzen, clearly ahead. So Qualcomm, for a wider range of workloads here, you see it performs exceptionally well in that low power envelope. So good stuff.
Yeah, for office productivity, that's good stuff. Yep. Now let's look at some rendering. That's
so if you want to beat up the notebooks, right, you're not probably not running, you know, Cinebench on these notebooks, but single thread, the best of the bunch, right? Multi-thread, it kind of sandwiches the MacBook Pro 12 core, beats the Core i7 and Ryzen 7 clearly, right? And the only things faster are the monster. And these are the biggest gaming notebooks you can get. They're the two fastest machines I was able to test.
8 and 10 pound gaming notebooks. Yeah.
Right. 17-inch discrete GPUs, big daddies. So good stuff, right? I mean, the performance picture looks good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just this was also interesting. 3D Mark Wildlife, which gives you a little bit of taste of graphics. Here you can see the only thing that beats it is the MacBook Pro 14 with its integrated graphics. But versus, for example, the Radeon 7780M integrated graphics, which is, you know, pretty stout integrated graphics these days for AMD's platform, beats it handily. And I think Apple, by the way, too, Wildlife Extreme has always been, I don't know, I think they optimize pretty hard on that on that one. We'll say that. And then any other graphics tests?
There is the
Aztec
GFX
Ruins.
Aztec Ruins looks really strong. Now this one, it's kind of weird running Aztec Ruins on a Windows machine, because you have on a, you know, an x86 Windows machine, because you have all these different APIs. These were the highest scores for the other platforms, but not necessarily the same API. And the kicker with the Intel UHD graphics in this MSI notebook, the UHD graphics aren't directly connected to the display. The discrete GPU is, so that hinders it a little more.
Right.
But I do have additional numbers from 2 more notebooks, and I'll be updating this today. It's still the Snapdragon's still at the top of the charts, but there'll be an Intel rig that lands just behind the Acer Swift, and then I'm adding 8CX Gen 3 numbers too, to show the generational improvements. And the 8CX Gen 3 is it's a monstrous leap. Snapdragon X Elite is a huge step forward over the 8CX Gen 3.
Yeah. And so really the only question is going to be, I mean, well, the question is going to be, can we, when we test them, can we prove out some of these numbers in more real world apps than just benchmarks, fire up a few games that might be compatible and things like that. And that's not going to happen until 2024. It is a 2024 launch that will be coming. Qualcomm stated that, but it'll be very interesting to watch because 2 things: 1, we can prove out these performance, and 2, these performance claims, and 2, we can hopefully prove out battery life. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see, because, you know, you're talking about laptops that consume a total of 80 watts under load with the display and the whole thing. You know, could be good. What are you looking for there, bud?
Yeah. So we had, I'm looking for the initial announcement, right, that showed some of the power scaling. And that's, there's 2 important points we need to talk about: software and power. A lot of these benchmark scores are coming, like the GPU is over 70%. It achieves those scores at like 70, if I'm remembering correctly, 70% lower power than Intel. And the CPU cores, if it's a CPU test, it's like 63%.
I'm going to drop the link in the chat for you. I found that the intro piece that you're talking about, and you'll see some of the power curves in there.
But the other thing if it all plays out right, so it's going to be interesting when these machines hit. it's not going to be really going against this generation in the charts. It's going to be against Meteor Lake. It's going to be against
Right.
Zen 5 based AMD mobile. Like if AMD sticks to their script, they usually announce new mobile parts at CES and then they arrive a few months later. CES is 2 months away. And Apple made their announcement, right? So Apple's got M3 coming. So the chart's going to look completely different when we actually get to test a Snapdragon X Elite when they arrive sometime towards the middle of next year is
Right.
what we're hearing. So that's there's lots to consider.
Yeah, well, and the other thing to consider is this is very early silicon. These platforms we tested are prototype, and one would think, as is typical in bring up of a new platform, that optimization happens as the run up to retail ready product. And I don't believe Qualcomm said whether it was in the first half or second half of 2024. They just said 2024. There's a lot of things that have to come in to play for a retail launch, including getting product into the channel and getting that all set up so that folks can actually buy this stuff when the big unveil, the complete unveil, is made. But I don't know if I don't know if you want to put up those power numbers, some of the curves, Marco.
Let me just go to that other article. I can't grab it out of the chat. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. It's right there in the mobile laptop section of Hot Hardware, don't you know?
Yeah.
Anyways,
on the way.
Yeah, they're making up to 2x faster GPU performance versus competition at ISO power. So similar power envelope, and it's up to 2x faster than Intel integrated, which would be Iris Xe graphics in this case. There you go. Well, that's actually the CPU chart, but whatever.
That's CPU, and then that's single thread. This is CPU
scroll up.
still, NPU. I think graphics is after this.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
there we go. That's the slide I was talking to there. And then matches competitive performance. Again, integrated Intel IGP Iris Xe graphics, assuming because they're referencing an i7-13800H here in the chart, matches that integrated graphics performance with 74% less power versus the competition, allegedly. Now they must be talking CPU power there, or platform power, not just looking at the total laptop, but I don't know how that was calculated, but it's an interesting curve for sure. And then the CPU curve is just as interesting. I don't know if you want to scroll up to that.
Yep, this one's the CPU curve.
Yeah, so I mean, faster CPU performance versus competition, 60% faster at ISO power. So same power level, roughly the same power level for the platform, and then matches the competition with 65% lower power consumption. Again, referencing that i7-13800H. These are bold claims. I mean, yes, Meteor Lake's coming, and we're going to see what that's all about. But very bold claims when you talk about performance per watt.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely
kind of huge.
Yeah, and like the conversation is going to be interesting because now with 8CX Gen 3, right, even the fastest of the 8CX class machines, the performance is good, right? The experience is good if you're using it, but it's not beating these higher end machines in the same sort of form factor and class. Now you're talking, even if all the next gen stuff surpasses Snapdragon X in some of these benchmarks where it's leading, you're now talking about this lower power platform. Some of them will have no active cooling, right? Passively cooled, so dead silent. If they offer the same builds, competitive, more than good enough performance with better battery life. And then the one thing we didn't talk about yet is with better AI performance, with better on-device AI. It's interesting. You really have to consider it. And then, I'm going to just jump to this because this is one last chart we didn't talk about before. This was the Procyon AI inference benchmark.
Yeah.
And this is the NPU in the Snapdragon X Elite really versus the CPU cores in the other notebooks because they don't have NPUs yet. So it's a huge performance lead if you're doing on-device AI. And at this moment in time, Qualcomm is the on-device AI leader technically, right? They haven't shipped yet either, but taking some liberties to say that. But that's what the numbers look like today, right?
today.
So really
Yes.
interesting stuff.
And yeah, we should point out that obviously Meteor Lake is coming, and Meteor Lake has an integrated NPU now. Obviously, AMD's been working on it with Ryzen AI, and they're still optimizing their platform as well. So these numbers could change, but that's the way it looks right now with existing hardware in the market, and that's the only thing we can really test. Once we get our hands on Meteor Lake, you'll be sure to know how these numbers match up, because we will we'll drop them right into the charts. Easy enough to do. But yeah, kind of wild. And when you look at that performance spread, obviously you need to understand, the Snapdragon platform, the X Elite platform, has that dedicated hardware acceleration for AI workloads, for machine learning, for neural network models, large language models, whatever. So that's a big deal. It's not, you can't just dismiss that. So it'll be interesting to see when Meteor Lake ships, and we can get hands on it, how that shakes out, because who knows? I mean, it could be anybody's guess who has the stronger AI platform. And these days, the nice thing about AI and clients is meaning laptops and desktops, commercial or consumer, is that all these companies are working on really demonstrating the worth of AI to the consumer. So not just party tricks with the camera, but real, demonstrable applications that will be very useful to folks, like Copilot, Windows Copilot, and Rewind was another one, which is kind of a version of Windows Copilot, where it takes notes for you and listens to if you let it, it listens to your meetings and takes notes and all kinds of very productive things. So I'm looking forward to that. Lots of content creation acceleration as well. And I think for me, that's what this is all about. Great. Yeah, it's got an AI accelerator, but let's finally see what we can do with this engine,
Yeah, I think the killer app for on-device AI hasn't been invented yet. Like the Copilot and stuff, the generative AI stuff that we see today, it's really in its infancy. But you need the accelerators out there to run it on device properly, and the seeds are planted now. So
good point from 20. It's good to see you there, brother. It's been a while. Integrated 5G. That's not to say that cellular connectivity isn't a thing in standard, Windows x86 PCs, laptops, what have you, because they are available. But it's always a cost adder. There's a discrete module that has to be added by the OEM, and cost drives everything these days. I mean, it's such slim margins in laptops. So yeah, I mean, that is a big advantage for Qualcomm with integrated, more integrated, tightly integrated 5G connectivity. And as they like to refer it, the always connected PC. It's not reliant on Wi-Fi. So yeah, man, it should be good.
I'm not sure 5G is the main selling point, though. I think it's going to be, class leading on device AI, assuming class leading battery life. I think the real key this time around, like if you look in my opinion at the previous gen platform, this might anger some people, but Microsoft torpedoed it, right, with the Windows support, not having 64-bit emulation from the start, and kind of treating it like a redhead stepchild for a while. It hurt the platform. Today it's very different. Like I have a Snapdragon X, that's not Snapdragon X, a Surface Pro X, that from time to time I'll completely reset it. I'll put the latest Windows Insider build on it, and I'll play with it, and it is worlds better today than it was when it came out.
Yeah.
And those were some of the questions I had at Snapdragon Summit, and I'm assured that I don't know what I can say, but it's the software support moving forward is going to be significantly better, I'm told. And on stage we saw the guys from Blackmagic Design said, DaVinci native version is coming. We know Adobe's got native stuff. Some of it's already here, more coming. Microsoft's apps now are all native ARM versions are available. So as more of these big high-powered apps become ARM native, and the emulation gets better, and the platform is higher performance, the experience, I think, is going to be way better this time around. So it's very interesting times.
Good encapsulation. I think that is absolutely the landscape that's beginning to take shape. So that's good stuff. Mike asks, that's Qualcomm, I assume. One of the new 3 new Intel Intel Foundry Services Club members. I would not expect. I mean, this probably was designed years ago. This has been years in the making and is on a process node at probably TSMC. Although, did they confirm that? I don't know.
I don't want to say the wrong
remember.
thing, but it's a very safe bet that it's TSMC.
Yeah, it would be hard to believe if it's a leading edge process like that they could have spun up early enough with Intel to do this. So no, I don't think that's the case. Probably TSMC, but again, speculation. So
yeah.
Did I keep you safe there, buddy?
I don't remember what was in a embargo round table or what was public, so I don't want to say.
I know you and me
both. Trouble.
All right, so yeah, hey, stay tuned for Snapdragon X Elite. We will be on the cutting edge of coverage for that for sure, and we'll let you know what we see when we can let you know. Should be fun. Yeah. All right. Let's move along to one last thing here. We've got a few minutes to kick into it. AMD Threadripper, Threadripper Pro 7000 debut, 96 core Zen 4 CPU benchmarked. My God, man, 96 cores. What do you need all those cores for? Yeah, what are you doing?
What do you mean? You'd still be with that attitude. You'd still have a horse and buggy.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I would need every one of those cores up.
Everyone watching needs 96 cores. You need it. You have
the folks at AMD are going to love you for that.
Exactly.
Because there is not a higher core count desktop CPU, HEDT high-end desktop. There it is. Look at that baby.
Yep.
Manischewitz. What a slab of silicon. Yeah, more cores, more cache, higher clocks, monstrous performance. HED returns.
Exactly.
HEDT.
So the delidded chip you see here, this is what it looks like underneath the Threadripper Pro with up to 96 cores. There's also non-pro standard Threadrippers coming up to 64 cores. Those only have 8 compute dies. So, it's 2. These rows of 3 here are only 2, but the same IO die. Yeah, this is just an insane platform. So just to quickly recap, because we're running out of time here, Zen 4 architecture that we have in the Ryzen 7000 series, it's been available in Epic, coming with these Threadrippers. Now, people, I have a full suite of benchmarks. The entire suite of benchmarks is in this article. Most people did not have this. So come look. It's insane. It's nuts. So this is just a quick recap of the Zen 4 architecture and the Threadripper 7000 topology. It's essentially, right, you take all of the goodness of an Epic, Zen 4 based Epic processor and consolidate it down for professional workstation or high-end desktop. The Threadripper Pros are targeting the professional workstation market, and the HEDT, the Threadripper 7000s, those are, kind of replacing what we've had on the desktop before. But if you remember, we didn't have a 5000 series standard Threadripper. AMD had said they're going to focus on Threadripper Pro moving forward, and there'll be no more standard Threadrippers. But that was kind of through the pandemic and through all the silicon shortages that we had, all the supply chain issues. And most of that has been resolved. And AMD feels that perhaps now is the time to reinvigorate this market. So we'll see what happens when they launch. But here's kind of how the two platforms differ. Really, the only difference with the standard Threadripper versus Threadripper Pro is 4-channel memory versus 8-channel, right, maximum. And the number of PCIe lanes and the integration of AMD's Pro features for manageability, remote management, security, things like that. Other than that, though, same architecture, same IO die, etc. And
Marco seemed to drop. I'm still here apparently. I don't know what happened, buddy. Anyways, I don't know if that's me or Marco.
I have no idea what happened. My machine just went black and came back. Something weird just happened.
What's that?
What's the last thing you heard me say?
Honestly, I was fumbling to try and get you back. So, oh, you were talking about the platform differences between pro and non-pro HEDT
Gotcha.
platform. So yeah, remote management, 4-channel
Yep.
memory versus 8, all that good stuff. I don't know why you faded there, buddy. That was weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So it looks like Edge just crashed. So I'm going to close that and see if that's what caused my machine to bug out.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all
I'll
right.
pull up a new screen because I want to show some of those benchmarks before we wrap. Let me just get
Yeah,
this open back
absolutely.
up
Do
again.
that. I wanted to ask when you look at 8-channel versus no, excuse me. Yeah, 8-channel versus 4-channel memory, right? In a many core system like this, that's a big big difference. Half the bandwidth theoretically. What's that look like? What does that do to performance? Does it really do you know? Because you
Um,
only tested the pro. Yeah.
right. So I don't know yet. Right. I didn't get hands-on time with a standard Threadripper.
Yep.
But what I can say, I'm going to bring this back up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Let me present this screen.
We'll get somebody to
Hopefully,
do the knobs and dials here eventually. Don't worry.
no, it's all good. It's everyone's having fun here. So
True. There
right,
you
you're
go.
in an actual memory bandwidth test on it. Now this system, I got to remote into a system that was set up at Dell's headquarters, and this machine was running 40 DDR5 4800 speed memory, whereas the
Mm-hmm.
platform supports it's either 52 or 56. I don't remember. When the systems are shipping and there's wider availability of faster memory, they'll have faster memory. But at this stage, um, you're looking at greater than 230-ish gigabytes per second on copies and greater than 260 to 280-ish on reads and writes. And if you look at that versus the Threadripper Pro previous gen, right,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically almost double the memory bandwidth. So not only do you have the newer CPU architecture with more
Yeah.
cache, you
Yep.
have double the memory bandwidth. So situations that are bandwidth bound, you're going to see a huge boost in performance. What apps those are, stuff like Blackmagic shows that. Blackmagic speed test shows it.
Yep.
But it's not going to be across the board, right? Memory band, you're not always memory bandwidth bound. So
Right. Yeah. So
So
that's
there will be times where standard Threadripper and Threadripper Pro perform the same.
so and that's important. That's an important distinction to make about this platform. Obviously, high-end desktop systems, HEDT systems like this are for certainly enthusiast folks that want all the cores they can get, but really content creation folks, other sorts of whether it be design and modeling folks, really some of the heavier workloads where you're talking about manipulating very large files and doing some serious crunching on media.
Yep.
I think is a good use case for this scientific analysis. Gotta love how these are just the ads are
Yeah.
freaking out on the site. We got to fix that. We'll fix that.
Doing
Promise.
demos live. This is what you get. But
Yeah, baby. Cinebench R24. There's an interesting take right there versus previous gen.
yeah,
Okay.
so and that's versus 64 core processor. Like that's just look at what it does versus a 24 core. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Same with like Pavre, like just
Pavre.
these huge. So this is what the fastest desktop CPUs do at the bottom, and then that's what happens when you have this kind of horsepower available. And this is just rendering. Like you got to keep in mind, you have more power for multitasking. You have more PCI Express lanes to have, faster peripheral access, to have faster access to the CPU. Like there's just more of everything. Like even Blender. Like look at that, right?
Yeah.
These are the two
Blender's
fastest.
a classic case. Yeah.
Yeah, two fastest desktop CPUs you can buy at the bottom, and then this, right?
Yeah.
Like it's huge. So it's really a monstrous platform in terms of performance. It in all of the multi-threaded stuff that can leverage. Like here's what happens in Blackmagic, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this was the GPU. Sorry, this was the ADA GPU. But like basically, if you're running a multi-threaded app that can leverage the CPU cores, it's a monster. And the plus of the sort of the modular architecture is when you're not if you're running single threaded, you're not really sacrificing much. Yeah, they don't clock as high as a mainstream chip, so it will lose in like a Jetstream or a PC Mark, stuff like that. But you're not getting crushed, and it doesn't really mar the experience. So it's really no compromise platform in terms of performance. Single thread is more than fine. So if non-multi-threaded stuff still runs great, but the multi-threaded stuff runs insanely great. Now you can pay for it. It's expensive, but yeah, it's a really powerful, super powerful platform.
Yeah, there was a modest, what I think was probably something like a 20%. It actually looked like a pretty significant, not modest, significant single-threaded lift. Was there not?
Yeah, versus the previous gen, it's a big lift because you're going from Zen 3 to Zen 4.
Yeah. So there's a significant IPC lift in general, just for the silicon. That's great. What's cooling like with this thing? You've got to have liquid cooling on it, right?
Yeah, it's their 350 watt TDPs, so you don't have to have liquid cooling. The same coolers that work with existing Threadrippers work on these. But if you really want to let it breathe, right, you want a 360 millimeter radiator on there, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'd want to have some headroom in there, some cooling headroom, and avoid the thermal saturation at all costs. That's usually the best bet. Very cool, man. I tell you what, AMD still crushing it on core count per socket, but it'll be interesting to see how things pan out in the days ahead as Intel gets down its process curve a little bit tighter, and perhaps gives them a fight in that regard as well. Core to core. But man, it's a fun time to be an enthusiast, right?
I mean, absolutely. And I'm really interested to finish my Xeon W testing, because part of the conversation at the AMD launch event is like, I just to get an insider's perspective. Like, I knew the answer to the question, but I asked it anyway. It's like they're offering 12 core Threadripper Pro. Like, why? Like, why would you offer a 12 core on this platform? And it's because a lot of customers want all of that IO bandwidth, but they don't necessarily need all the cores. So if you really think about that, Intel's single core, the performance cores in the Xeon W, are superior in terms of performance than a single core in Zen 4. So Intel does not have a 96 core. Their highest end Xeon W is 56 core, right? A huge deficit in terms of the max. But if customers aren't seeking if a large percentage of customers aren't seeking all of those cores, then that still makes Xeon W viable, and then it would also mean better single thread and better lightly thread performance. So it's going to be interesting. I gotta wrap my head around all of it.
Yeah, no, it's wild. And as Mike points out, PCI slots. So yes, when you're talking about multi GPU render farms and stuff like that don't necessarily need all the cores. They need more. They're more GPU bound for the workload. That's definitely a expansion. All those PCI Express lanes off the root complex are a big plus. So yeah, man, wild stuff. Threadripper Pro 7000. You gonna build yourself a rig out of that one of these days, and call it a day?
It might be right here. It might not be right here. I don't know.
You're not going to let it go back to AMD though, huh?
Well, no, I didn't get my actual hands on the Threadripper. That was a remote session. I'm just being funny, but I do need a new rig. I'm still running Windows 10 on a Threadripper 2000 series, so I haven't upgraded in many years, and I kind of feel like I need, like, my machine just bugged out during the cast. It went black screen. I'm having weird graphics anomalies. I have a bunch of stuff not working right. I need a new rig. So yeah, I'm probably going to do something in the next 6 months once everything shakes out.
Cool. Well, I mean, hey, as you like to say, upgrade early and often, right, Marco?
Yes.
So take your own advice, damn it. And I think we should wrap on that note, because we're out of time for the live stream today. But it was a pleasure catching up with you, my friend, and hopefully everybody here in the audience enjoyed a little catch up time with us as well.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I'm sure they did. How could they not have had a good time?
I don't know. I mean, we didn't. It's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon, East Coast time. We didn't crack any beers, but I mean, maybe next time we can if we have to, because it's important for work. That's gin, right? And that's just gin.
That's high quality H2O.
Yeah, baby. Me too. Hey, so you can find us on the web at hothardware.com, twitter.com/hothardware, youtube.com/hothardware, everywhere. We're on the web. Hit thumbs up and subscribe if you would be so kind, so that you get notified when we go live with stuff, and support the channel and all that good stuff. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks, or maybe next week at this time, actually, not a couple of weeks. Are we traveling next week? I don't know.
No, not next
No.
week. And we'll definitely be on, because we most likely have a guest soon that we have to when it's locked in, we'll let you know who's coming on and what it's about.
Oh, that's right. Well, we do have some special guests lined up, multiple special guests lined up. So stick around there. And who knows, we may even announce a giveaway too. So catch us on the next one for sure. And until then, we thank you so much for stopping by.